My name is Elena Ward, and on my wedding night, my mother gave me a beautiful ivory box in front of everyone I knew. It weighed almost nothing. My husband, Noah, stood beside me beneath strings of warm lights he had hung himself across the church hall. My grandmother, June, held my wrist under the table. Across from us, my mother, Vivian, smiled as if she had rehearsed the moment for weeks. I lifted the lid. Inside lay white tissue paper and nothing else. The silence lasted one breath. Then Vivian said, loudly enough for the back tables to hear, "That is exactly what this marriage is worth." A few relatives laughed. My sister Mallory joined them a second late. Noah did not move. He was a power line technician, broad-shouldered, kind, and permanently marked by honest work. My mother had despised him from the first dinner when she seated him beside the children and asked his salary across the table. She called our engagement a poor investment. 2 weeks before the wedding, she withdrew the money she had promised for the reception, expecting me to cancel. Instead, Noah and I used our savings, rented the church hall, and filled it with folding chairs, casseroles, and people who loved us without invoices. Still, the empty box struck the oldest wound in me. I had spent 32 years being useful enough to deserve a place in my family. I remembered birthdays, drove relatives to appointments, and answered every midnight call. My mother praised me only for being dependable, like a machine that never failed. Now she had shown me what she believed remained when I stopped serving her. I set the box down without crying. My grandmother leaned close. "Open mine at your seat," she whispered. She pressed a small wooden case into my hands, wrapped in brown paper. I recognized the joinery before I untied the string. My late grandfather, Arthur, had built it. Inside rested June's worn wedding band, an old brass union badge, and a folded note. Arthur had been a pipe fitter. He had started a mechanical company with one truck, paid for my mother's education, built her comfortable life, and constructed the lakehouse where every happy memory of my childhood lived. Yet Vivian had erased his trade from our family history because she was ashamed of being known as a laborer's daughter. The note read, "They priced his hands cheaply. Those hands built everything. Never let anyone price yours." When I looked up, my mother's face had gone pale. She followed me into the hallway and ordered me to hide the box. Then she called June confused and revealed too much. She said the lake house needed to be sold quickly before my grandmother made a foolish decision. I was a paralegal. Contracts were my daily work, and her urgency sounded like a hidden clause. The morning after the wedding, Noah and I drove to the lake. June was waiting on the porch, doing a crossword in ink. She was clear-eyed, furious, and completely certain Vivian had left a transfer deed on her kitchen table. A notary was coming Monday. All June had to do was sign the house into my mother's name. "I do not want it sold," June said. "I want Arthur's fingerprints to remain after I am gone." I contacted a property solicitor I trusted. June met her alone. Her physician confirmed in writing that she understood every decision. By Friday, the lake house had been placed into an irrevocable family trust. June kept the right to live there for life. Afterward, the Arthur Ward house would remain a family refuge and could never be sold. On Sunday, my mother hosted brunch and offered me everything I had once wanted. She would restore me to her will, pay for a honeymoon, and welcome me back, provided I kept quiet about Arthur and stopped interfering with the house. For one aching moment, I wanted to accept. Her voice softened around the word daughter, and the child inside me reached for it. Then I touched June's ring. I stood before the same relatives who had laughed and placed Arthur's badge on my jacket. I told them who built their comfort. I told them the house was protected. I told them my grandmother had chosen freely. Vivian threatened to leave me nothing. "You can keep the money," I said. "My value was never yours to calculate." I left with Noah, poorer by my mother's arithmetic, and free from it at last. 6 months later, June still lives at the lake. Noah repairs whatever loosens, and I do crosswords beside her. Arthur's photograph hangs in the hallway again. My mother rarely calls. Mallory sometimes does. Her daughter asks questions about the great-grandfather nobody mentioned. That is how silence ends. Not with revenge, but with one person telling the truth and refusing to be priced. The empty box still sits in my closet, but it no longer frightens me. I keep it as proof that emptiness belonged to her judgment, never to my marriage, my work, or my heart.